Okay, in this video I'll be talking about another feature in Silmaril, and that's what I call a campsite. Now, this this feature was kind of added mostly for all your master leveling nuts out there. You want to be able to do your day job and master level at the same time, whatever. This feature is kind of for that, where you are in a somewhat static area. You're fighting enemies. You've already configured a lot of Silmaril for healing and weapon skills and all that stuff. So this just brings it together. And so, if you haven't seen the previous video on fighting, I recommend you do that. But this kind of takes off from where that left off, right? So this screen shouldn't be new, right? Should be somewhat familiar with it from the last video. The difference is to use campsite is just the first thing is your distance, right? You're going to select the campsite, and there's another tab up here called campsite, where if you enable it, you also have to set a location. In this particular example, I'm in the crawler's nest, and this is the location. Now, campsites are by player. Ideally, they're roughly about the same if you're going to be fighting in the same geographic area. But maybe your master trial, or not master trial, but a Magian trial, and you're like, oh, I want this one to work on my Yag Rush, so it needs to kill the stuff over here, and then you could do a gun trial over there, right? So you can have different campsites in different areas, but generally speaking, when you're master leveling, you might only have one person set up a campsite. Say, for instance, it's your main melee, like a samurai, if you're doing jimpus or whatever, or maybe just 2 or 3 DPS. It just depends on your setup. So it's relatively straightforward. You just click the button here. It's going to tell you the zone and the coordinates, right? And that's important. And I'll get a little bit more into this and why you need to set a location to center, and then the actual camp size itself. So to help explain how the distance here, along with the camp size, and how you would pull, I have a high-speed graphic that I'd like to share with you. It's better than the last one, so if you see the last one before I took the video off, ta-da! Here we go. This is going to be my attempt to just explain this stuff, okay? So, starting with just the actual campsite. Right here, you got this distance, right? So this is the detection distance. Remember before, if I set this to a player or self, right? So this instead is setting the detection distance of 20 yams from this geographic location, right? So if I just click there, and let's assume that is this point, right, in the open world, that now from this point there's a radius, right, of detection that this player, this is these stars. So yeah, let me give you the legend here. So these purple stars I chose is just a player. These are enemies. This here is the camp size, and then this is the detection distance from this location. So again, this coordinates is this dot in here, right? So I just click the set button. That's all you do. And then I set the camp size, right? So this black circle is the camp size, and I'll get into that a little bit. I was talking about the detection and how it targets enemies. So since I have selected distance from this, and I set it to 20, now these players in here, these purple stars, are going to basically target any enemies within this red outer circle, right? So all 3 of these enemies are fair play. Okay. So then there's another option that you see here is camp size, and what this intent is the basic black line here, where these players are not allowed to go outside this boundary zone. Okay. What'll happen is say for instance, this player here sees this enemy. He's like, "Yep, it's within my 20 distance. It's fair game." Problem is, it knows it's beyond your camp boundary, right? So it's not going to run towards that enemy. And remember how fighting only draws your weapon? So what it's going to do instead, it's going to draw the weapon and engage this target, but not move. Okay, so that's where you have to combine features, right? So let me give you an example of what I got here. All right, so in this particular case, Yavanna is assisting Turin, and she'd be casting Diaga. Okay, so say this is Turin, when he engages this enemy here, he's going to have to rely on the mage to pull it, right? Because I don't want to go beyond this fence, this virtual fence, this camp size. Otherwise, they just keep, going off in the middle of nowhere, and it's also not very efficient if you have them running from all the way over here to all the way over there. No, you want to bring all the enemies into a central location. So that's what uh, the camp size does, is it keeps the movement of your players within a boundary zone. Okay, so that's the campsite. You can change this. I personally like about 6 yums. The reason I like roughly around there, and you can nerd out, but you got geomancy bubbles, right? That's critical for a lot of your master leveling. So I don't want my players to be too far out of my Luopons. And my Luopons, uh, you can do it differently. Personally, the way I like it to always 100% ensure that I get my effects is I actually cast Fury on the Geomancer himself. And typically, I'll have the Geomancer or your mages very close, if not the center of your camp. Reason being, you can set your camp then about 20 yalms, and most magic is 20, 21 and a half. Sorry, 21 to 21 and a half yalms to cast. So you don't have to worry about a player drawing a weapon and then being out of magic range. Okay. But going back real quick, yeah, I like the Geo Fury. This is going to cast the Geo Fury on themselves. Okay. And that basically allows your bubble to be centrally located when all your players kind of running around, pulling and mobs in and engaging. Now, once that mob crosses the threshold, they're allowed to move, of course, and engage, right? If they get too far out and they just stick here, they do come back a little bit. Technically, I think I have like half distance of camp. So they'll come back a little bit to allow them. So they'll draw their weapon, and then they'll kind of move back, and then that allows your mages, your support, to pull. So, like you can tell, there's a lot of different aspects you got to bring together to get a really good, effective master level going on. You need a puller, you need obviously the DPS, you need to configure both fighting and the campsite, and then of course, like I said, the pulling happens from the combat script typically. And as some examples, okay, so I have my Bard doing Threnody for Turin here when he pulls. It's always good to have multiple means of pulling. It's just faster, and you might have a 2-second delay after. I mean, there's this soft lockout of any action around 2 seconds, right? So, well, mostly your weapon skills and magics, but basically, that's 2 seconds. Your DPS is going to sit there with their weapon drawn, looking silly and so I have multiple ways of pulling in enemies. This particular case, just a simple shoot, right? Another person going to shoot at him, and then in this particular case, I'm just going for maximum pulling capabilities, and so I just have a bunch of Agas, right? I Diaga instead of Dia 2. So that kind of in a nutshell is how campsite works. It's in conjunction with fighting. So in this particular case, I set the max enemies to 6. It doesn't really matter. You can only pull as many enemies as you can attack anyway. And so, yeah, again, detection distance, red here, physical boundary of your player movements is camp size, and then you need the combat scripts generally to assist. You can do other fancy stuff, but that's pretty effective, I found. And whenever possible, just a note on combat scripts. There's 4 options here. Try to stay away from script. Diaga, you're gonna have to do it in script because it's not an actual recast timer. But the other 3, it's able to detect obviously cooldowns, MP quantities, all that sort of stuff. But the most important part is once that cast has finished, say for instance you got hit and you interrupted, it's going to keep trying that until it actually detected that you cast this action, this ranged attack on the specific mob itself, right? So it actually does some checks to make sure, yep, you really did shoot that enemy instead of move and interrupt. It'll retry and retry and retry until you complete this action. And again, like everything else, it's based off of priorities, right? How aggressive your combat script will be to complete. So like maybe for instance, let's see if I can find my White Mage for instance here. I'm going to bubble that up a little bit more. I might want that combat script to be pretty high priority because that's basically my inflow of enemies. Okay. All this stuff I talked about. And you can be very simple. Like I said, it can just be 1 DPS, pulling in an enemy, and 1 Geomancer casting Dia, right? That's pretty common. If you got a Bard, like I said, it's that Trinity. Or you can kind of go all out, right? And I'm saying that because that's kind of what you can end up doing. So in this particular example, where I've been master level here, it's just good old Crawler's Nest. Typically, I would normally just have my Samurai, but I kind of have obviously a mastering level some crud jobs here, and it's kind of a waste to have some of the guys sitting around too. So what I've done instead is I got a ranger here. I haven't leveled a ranger, and I got my core also just doing wildfire, something simple, not even bother skill chaining, just wildfire for darkness, right? And so I got 3 attackers here, and then my White Mage and Geomancer are just basically pulling whatever they can grab. Right, so as you noticed, I think I had Diaga set, right? So there's my 2 Diagas. I'm just trying to grab everything. And then there's this boundary condition where all these players, I mean, they're not allowed to move beyond that 6 Yams, but they're moving, right? I mean, they can close the distance on that. And I'm just Diaga and trying to pull everything in. And this isn't obviously no one comes here anymore because it's, Apex mob. It's not Locust. It's not as good. At least in my server, but you can get respectable DP or EP or exemplar points per hour. It's a little bit different. It's not. You're not going to hit 350, but it's not bad because you basically just if you can kill fast enough, it's like anything else. You can do some good numbers. But I just kind of wanted to explain a little bit about the campsite and really kind of, show you what you can leverage some of the features of Silmaril. And it looks more like an actual cardy because that's kind of what you would do, right? You'd have your 2 or 3 DPS. In this case, I have, a core and a ranger and a Sam, right? So I don't know if you saw that, but the core actually shot to pull because he did a combat script of himself. And then he's just doing, wildfire, trying to solar his own mobs. Not super effective, but like I said, it's kind of more as just sometimes it's fun to do controlled chaos, and that's a little bit of what's going on here. And yeah, so hopefully that gives you some ideas what you can do with your particular party and setup, and hope enjoy. Like I said, make it a little bit fun. There's always ways to tweak it. Like I said, I just kind of plopped out here for the video. I knew I had it's a range month, and so I figured I should actually master level my ranger. So that's kind of why my ranger is out here, and my white mage I never play. So anyway, if you got any questions, issues, of course, just post it up on Discord. Thanks.